This is Groundeffected, and normally I would say something about your dad, but today I'm pretty sure I'm painting your dad. First of all, I can only describe this as what appears to be the size of a small child. And while I am already ambitious as it is, this is a very ambitious project. And this is because due to my current schedule, I paint 2 models a week. That means I have literally got 2.5 days to paint this entire model before my video goes up on Thursday, which you will be watching, and this is the video. Is this even possible? Who knows? But I'm damn sure gonna make a try at it. Now, obviously, one of the most time-consuming things about making a video is actually making the video itself. And so, if there's anything weird about this video, then I'm sorry, I've got a lot to do. But if there isn't, well then I don't know why I included this part, in which case it's probably best for me to save it for when I come to editing. And obviously, I have a lot of prep work to do. Like, I have holes that I need to fill, because that's obviously where suction is. Also, I had a little bit of an awkward moment with an STL, and so thus forth I have 1 or 2 layer lines that needing to be sanded. There is holes and things to be filled up, and a load of prep work to be done, but I do not have time to stuff around. So yes, there will probably be some mistakes and things left out in the prep work of this model. And this monstrosity was made by Zenith Studios, which goes without saying that this video was sponsored by Zenith Studios. As we are at the start of obviously painting this model, I'm going to use Zenithal to highlight one piece. Just one piece, and that is literally the traffic cone on the base. Everything else in this model is going to get a black primer, and that's it. End of story. I'm going to paint it black and leave it like such. The only anomaly in this model printing is that I had printed the little burst of whatever the energy is coming out of his foot in a transparent resin. I then sprayed that with a little bit of a fluorescent orange on the tip, and then Talisar blue, and I also did not clear coat this part, because if I did, I felt like it might look a little bit weird since most of the model is going to be glossy itself. We didn't want the burst of energy being the same texture as the model. Now moving on to the traffic cone, as you can see, I have taped off the areas that are white, and this is obviously going to remain white while I then spray in the orange of the actual color of the cone itself. And here you can see just how effective that technique is. Now of course I want this to have a slight gloss to it, but not a crazy shine, so I used a semi-gloss over the top. I'm going to now take a little bit of silver and paint the center of the tire that is on the base. I'm going to spray this around the center, the little piece of metal in the middle, before coming back in to then paint the rubber and tires color all around the rubber and tire part of the tire. Of course, this did not look like a tire to me when I was done painting this, and that should not be a surprise. The fact that the name of the color of paint does not in fact equal what the color is that's going to come out in most cases. However, that's okay, we can do something to fix this. First, I'm going to just give a little bit of a tint to the metal bits, and after that, I'm going to then take some black Templar and paint that very specifically around the rim of the edge of that metal piece, and then also shadows of the tire itself. I'm going to spray this into some of the areas around the treaded area of the tire. This is going to help just make it look a little bit more tire-like, obviously. Now taking some liquid skill in a bottle, which is basically just panel line wash, and I'm going to kind of put this into the crevasses of some of these bits. For example, on the tire, around the rim of that metal piece, but also on the cone where the lines separate the colors on the cone, obviously. Now I'm going to dry brush a little bit of silver onto the pipe that is on the base and add some rust effects using some rust effects and also a little bit of copper paint. The base of this model can be described as separated into two main portions, and these are the ground, which is brown, and also the road segment, which is obviously grey or road color. And these two main portions need to obviously be painted. So the way that I chose to do this was to start off with the browns. This way I can kind of control the colors a little bit later on, and you will see how I do that as I move on. But most importantly, what I'm going to do is dry brush all the brown areas first, and once I have done dry brushing all of these brown areas to look sufficiently brown with texture, I'm then going to start working my way up and painting the tar areas, which are going to be done with greys. I start with a really dark grey, and this does feel like it's not doing much, but the reality is it is doing a lot. And the only way, genuinely, when I'm painting this, it looks like no difference is happening, but when I speed up the footage, I can actually see that there is a slight difference happening whilst doing this. Now, of course, you may not notice that while you're painting, so just so you know, it doesn't look like anything is happening until suddenly something is actually happening. Now, very importantly when it comes to this is I want to try and pick out a lot of the edges. There is so much detail sculpted into and around the surface of this tar, so we want to make sure that we catch all of those little details, because this is going to help to make it stand out. On the ground, like the brown areas, I didn't really try to pay too much attention to all of the sculpted pieces, because I felt like this is an overall uniform look on that section of the base. But when it comes to the tar piece, this is the top sections of all of these ground bits. I feel like these stand out more and need to be addressed as such, and so obviously I'm going to pay a little bit more attention to edges and all the little crispy corners that can be caught with a nice dry brushing technique. And now that the main look for the tar or road section is done, I can then move on to painting the road markings that are across the base. And I'm just going to start with this bottom line at first. The most important thing is this is going to be yellow. So in order to make it actually look yellow, what I need to do is paint down a light base color first. And my choice for this is going to be Decktown. This is because it covers very well and is an easy paint to paint. There is a bit of sludge coming out of the drain, and so while the Decktown was drying, I just quickly painted that sludge. Now I can get back to painting that road marking, and for that I will be using this Imperial Fist yellow. Now I'm just painting this directly over the top of everything that I had painted with the Decktown at first. This means that obviously the Decktown needed to be painted in exactly the shape that I wanted the yellow markings to be, because of course if anything is sticking out, it's going to look weird, and if the yellow goes off the edges, that is also going to look weird, and we do not want that. Now to make this not look like a crazy just bright yellow stripe, I'm going to take some Iyanden yellow and I'm going to just use a small piece of sponge that I tore off with a little bit of grey as well, and just dab that over the top of it to make it look a little bit more worn in and weathered, so to speak. Now I can take some dark silver and go around and paint all of the rebar that is across the base. And with all the other accessories done, the rebar and all the little bits and pieces, the pipes and everything else, I can then paint the last little bit of road markings on the other portion of this base, which will then pretty much complete the look for how this base is. Once this is fully dried and I can put on obviously the little extra texturing, I can then put all these little pieces together and that makes the base done for this massive behemoth of a model.
Do you remember when I said that this video might be a bit weird? Well, this is one of those weird things. Like where you paint an entire amount of silver chrome stuff on everything because you were testing stuff and then realized that it's too late now and you have now painted all of the silver things and didn't show anyone any of that. So that's pretty cool, but one thing I have started testing is the red, and as you can clearly see, that looks pretty fantastic. And luckily for us, I'm going to definitely have to show you this because I have run out and I no longer have any red, and so thus far my day tomorrow is going to be no longer painting the thing that I was going to be painting, because I now have to find the paint that I need to paint the thing that I'm going to be painting. So that's really great. I knew that I should have got more than one bottle, because one bottle was not enough for a small child size 3D print. And so if this video ends here, this is because not my fault that people don't keep enough stock of the paints that I need, and I'm not a good enough shop to have that in my store. So there we go. Let's hope that there is available paint, otherwise no model for us.
Okay, so now it is time to put the paint on, and I have to wear this thing, otherwise apparently I'm gonna die. Also, there's a lot of noise because I have to have the door open to get the ventilation of the ventilation. But basically, the trick with this entire thing is the fact that I've painted the chrome on there. I'm now going to use this X23 from Tamiya. I lie, it's X27. And I paint that over the top, and that ends up giving you this candy apple color, which is generally magical. So that's what I got to do now. And annoyingly, it makes a massive mess. And I don't want to die, so I gotta wear this thing. Also, by the way, if you're using this paint, this is the thing that you need. It's called X20A thinner, and it's the thinners for this stuff, because you can spray it neat, but it's better with a thinner. Also, you may have noticed I'm not that far into the painting, and I've still got large pieces left, but I've already gone through 3 bottles of the stuff, so you're gonna need a lot if you're gonna paint a model this big.
That's right, the past me did not realize just how much the future me would know once in the future. And now that I know what I know, if you are wanting to paint a Hulkbuster and you're gonna use this technique to get your candy apple red, well then, buy the entire stock of whatever shop you go to buy this Tamiya Clear Red. Because genuinely, I used so many bottles, it was not even fathomable the amount of friggin' paint that I was gonna be using.
This is a sight to behold. There's literally parts on everything. I've fully run out of places to put things. That things are having to dry in places that they've never dried before, and some things are just drying where they are going to be forever standing. But luckily for me, I've got all of the reds done. Now it's time to just wait for this to dry so that I can start putting all the detailing. Also, by the way, I've literally never sprayed this many bottles of paint in my life, and in theory these are each £2.50, making it £10 just for one color on a singular model. This is starting to be a little bit pricey. Also, if you're worried about cleaning out your airbrush, well, I've just been using alcohol and it has been cleaning it out freaking fantastically, and I have absolutely no problems. The airbrush booth, on the other hand, is a problem. I need someone to send me a nice waterfall one. Either way, there is not much to do now other than sit around and wait. I should have literally painted this first so that it could be dried by now and I wouldn't be wasting my time. Yeah!
But now that everything is actually dry, I can now go in and start painting over the red that I had originally painted. Now, of course, it may seem like a bit of a backwards way to do things, and maybe if you are so inclined, you might want to try masking off some of these things. I, on the other hand, absolutely hate masking, and especially something like this, I would rather jump in the ocean in the middle of winter in my underpants than to mask any of this. Genuinely, I hate masking with such a passion that there was no ways I was going to mask it. And so the way that I chose to paint it is to put the overall color down and then just put whatever accents over the top of that. Now there are a couple of little reactor areas that need to be glowing, and in order to create that effect, what I did was I sprayed a bit of a white ink into the center of them, and then I sprayed them with a blue Talisar. After that had fully dried, I then turned down the pressure on my airbrush and I very carefully sprayed a smaller white dot or circular thing in the center of each one of those reactor pieces. Of course, those silver pieces that I had painted before, I feel like are a little bit boring looking. Of course they are, because they are just flat, one solid silver color. And in order to just change that, what I'm going to do is multiple things. One of which is to spray a little bit of a tinted color over the top in the form of Skeleton Horde, which gives it that yellowishy kind of look. And then I used a dry brush with some actual bright silver and dry brush the edges to make some of the edges stand out a little bit more. One of the disadvantages of painting the way that I'm painting is that I've still yet to find a gold color that actually looks gold and makes me satisfied in the way that it paints. Because most gold paints, it feels like you're painting, I might as well genuinely paint with a wet rock, because honestly, gold paint is the worst in the world. But what I have found is that Monument Hobbies, a bronze, which kind of looks like a gold if you think about it, is probably the best coverage paint that is in the area of gold that I possibly own. And so annoyingly, this means that everything needs to be painted in this color, which is not the gold that I want for this model. Genuinely, I wish that I could have painted an actual gold over everything, but if I did want to do that, I would have to mask things, and masking, we already know my feelings about masking. Also, I'll be totally honest with you, I am pretty certain if you try to mask over the top of this candy apple color that we have created, I'm convinced that you would need to leave it for like a month before you could do any masking, because I'm pretty sure it would just pull all the paint off. Although that might help with some of the weathering, which I'm actually doing right now, and that is to take a sponge with a little bit of silver and to just kind of like dab it across all the edges, so every single hard edge there is, specifically around like his feet and his hands where it'd be punching things, maybe some scratches by just scuffing it a little bit with the sponge. That also helps to just create that battle ward effect, make it look a little bit more realistic as a fighting robot suit, of course. Now, I would also be using a bit of liquid skill to put into the shadows of the metal pieces, because this also helps to differentiate parts and just create separation. As you can see, it just helps to make darker areas in areas that need to be darker, of course, specifically in crevasses and cracks and things. But I can also flick some of that liquid skill all over the model as well to help just with the effect of dirt, I guess, just making the model not appear to be so factory new and shiny. Now, a lot of the parts that are gold need to be just really carefully assessed. There is no advice I can give you for this other than to assess the actual model and assess pictures, references, look at the movie, watch freaking comics. I don't know what you do, but you need to assess things. And I'm going to tell you that a lot of my time was spent just assessing where things are, and I can also tell you that I definitely got some things wrong, and I can even tell you more on top of that I don't care, because the time frame that I did this in, I think genuinely I should probably go to the king of this country and receive my medal for whatever the heck it is that I've achieved here, because genuinely I don't even know how I managed to get any of this done. Like, I feel like I'm dying right now. I don't even know how I got to work this morning. All of my memory of that has completely surpassed my brain, and I'm literally sitting in my chair the day of, by the way. This is Thursday. I am voiceovering this video on Thursday. I've got very far into this video before I've actually told you the important part, which is if you want this model, obviously, you're going to want to get it from Zenith Studios. Now, that is the sponsor of this video, and I should tell you that they are a Patreon, over on Patreon, and every single month they create amazing STLs, awesome models, really cool statues that are cut and keyed very well indeed, and they fit together. This model stands together without a single magnet, which honestly, that is a feat all in of itself. It is a fantastic thing. I'm very glad that it works like that, because if I had to have added magnets, I don't think I would have made it, and we would have just been looking at a magnetizing video. Now, of course, I want to mention that they are a studio where you can get models every single month, and so you should go and check them out, because if you haven't heard of them, well then now you have, and there are a link in the description for you to go and check them out. Just go subscribe, whatever. Let's move on to painting the rest of these pieces. Now, of course, I'm going to just be doing trim, a lot of trim, and I don't even know if there's any words that I need to tell you while I do any of this trim, so I might just actually shut up and just let you watch me do the trim. I do want to mention though, with the gold areas on the model, what I did do is I sprayed a little bit of Reichland Flesh Shade into some of the shadows, and this just kind of helps sell the effect of gold, I guess, because it isn't really gold, so that Reichland Flesh Shade just helps give us that little warm sort of orange color that gold seems to have in the shadows, and it's just maybe a small trick of the mind. Now, of course, there are other parts, like for example on his knees, where I had to paint all of that silver. It's the same kind of thing on his arms, like the shoulder joints as well. They needed to be silver too. I'm gonna obviously now start working on the head, which is kind of awkward because normally I would do the head towards the end of painting a model like this, but this is different. It's not a face, and so it's just pretty much part of all the trimming, and there's not really much I can do about it other than just carefully trim everything, especially when it comes to the face here, because obviously this is a very recognizable portion of the model, and people are going to look at that when they look at the model itself. So when it comes to the bronze that I put on the face, I figured that it was not bright enough, so I will add a bit of a highlight to that. And in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this champagne gold, which is from Kaleido Paints, and I'm going to very carefully, on a low pressure, try to spray this mostly in the center of the golden section of his mask. Now I'm going to take a very light blue, and it's close to white, but it's blue. It definitely is blue, and I'm going to paint that into his eyes. And what I didn't record was spraying with my airbrush very carefully into the corners of those eyes to make them look like they were glowing, and I sprayed that with a white ink. Now, of course, I can move my way onto the shoulder pads, which is pretty straightforward, and there is only really two little pieces of silver and one piece of gold, which is a little band that goes around it, and those are pretty much done. his arms have these golden things that need to be scuffed up, because obviously these parts would probably be used when he's fighting, perhaps as blockers, and maybe he even uses them to punch things, of course, as well as his fists. But at the same time, they do need to be scuffed up, and so I did that by using my sponge and some silver paint. I also then painted his elbows in the same fashion that I painted his knees and his shoulders. And with the majority of the model done, it is time to move on to the next most important thing that people would be looking at, and this is going to be his hands. This is because usually you're holding something in your hands, and so the human's brain tends to just make you look at things like faces and hands. So of course, the hands need to be done in a good fashion as well. So carefully, with smaller brushes this time, I'm going to paint into all of the crevasses using the exact same dark silver. Now, I need to be careful with this because any overpainting at this point is going to be impossible to come back from. Genuinely, in order to come back from this, it means that I'm repainting from the beginning, because you can't just touch up this candy apple red. It's not the way that this works, and so obviously I need to make absolutely certain that mistakes are not going to be made. This is why I have extra paintbrushes on my table, and you can literally see me wiping off as I am going when I make any mistakes. After I've done all of the trimming, it's as simple as adding on all the detailing, the weathering, and then the same trick for his palm with that little energy area, and pretty much now I can put the hand on the model and call it done. Well, this was a freaking long video. Genuinely, this is a very large amount of work to do, and if you are obviously going to be wanting to paint one of these, well, perhaps it's best not to try and attempt it in 2 days, because that is a rather large feat to achieve, and I'm feeling a little bit pooped after doing all of that work. But speaking of pooped, of course, if you're watching this video while on the toilet, well, that was a long one, dude, and you should probably wash your hands and maybe go for a walk, because your legs are going to be a bit numb and you're going to have a ring around your bum. Next thing I need to say at the end of the video is obviously thank you. Thank you to everybody who watches my content, and thank you to everyone who supports here on the channel. But also, very importantly, thank you to those who support me over on my own Patreon. If you are wanting to see more of these videos and want to keep me in business, well then go check out my Patreon, because just a small amount from you will help to keep the lights blinding my eyeballs. Of course, the electricity man wants his money and somebody's got to pay it. Now, that's not me, because I don't actually have a job, because my job is just making models. But if you are supporting me over on Patreon, well then you might pay the electricity, and your friend might pay for the next paints that I need to paint a model. That is the end of the shilling, that is the end of the video, and it is now time for me to say the most important thing, and that is, just f*** off.